So as a freedom-seeking being...
Freedom from what?
Freedom from any kind of limitation of what I can be, do, or have. Anything that I choose, anyone I want to be with. I have, during my life, encountered a lot of restriction through the male energy that I have chosen. And I am no longer encountered or encumbered by that now. And I'm finding that the soaring I'm doing is exponentially huge than anything I've done before. And there is less contrast and less pain than there was before.
The reason that we ask the question, freedom from what, is because most people will say freedom from bondage, or freedom from work, or freedom from not enough money, or freedom from sickness, or free. And in all of that, we want to say that freedom only comes from releasing of resistance. Yes. And you are the only one who is responsible for the resistance, because the resistance is only about the gap between who you have become and who you are allowing yourself to be. And you can say, I've released the resistance because I've moved away from this, or away from this, or away from this, or whatever it is. And it really doesn't matter what game you're playing in it, but it is ever so much more beneficial if you just acknowledge that I am moving myself up the emotional scale. Yes. And therefore closing that gap, because no one is responsible for your resistance any more than anybody is responsible for Esther hurting her little toe.
Indeed. And so within the context of relationship, what would be your advice if I have tried for about 5 years to make this relationship work, more or less, and that there has been an enormous amount of resistance, and I have removed myself that, and have certainly moved myself up the emotional scale, and I've done the processes, and feel much freer, so that he is now moving more into that direction also. Yet, I can't quite release the notion in two ways. On the one hand, there is no longer the strong emotional bond that I once felt, and so I'm willing to relinquish this relationship. On the other hand, there is the part of me that says, well, wait a minute, aren't there issues there that you should address so that they don't show up again in the next relationship? And you reading my vibration and hearing me, tell me what is true, because I really don't know anymore.
Well, anytime you relieve resistance by taking action, it's a sure bet that the resistance is still there and it will show up again. So, but that does not mean that it's wrong to take action. In other words, it's the story that we like best is you're sitting on a park bench and you're feeling fear. And you don't know if there's really a monster in the bushes, or if you just think there's a monster in the bushes. And we say, in any event, move away from the monster.
I see, I would go towards it, check it out, whether it's true that it's there or not.
You would move toward?
I would check the bushes for the monster, because if it's a fear, I've done this all my life, if it's a fear, then it is something I want to know if it's real or not, if it's in fact there or not.
Well, here's the thing that we really want you to hear. Mm-hmm. All fear is valid, because in every case it's pointing out vibrational difference. In other words, there is no monster in the bushes other than what is created in this vibrational gap.
Yes.
And so we don't want you to take the action of checking out the bushes. We want you to do whatever it takes to cause a diminishment of the fear. And when you discover that it's a mental thing, mm-hmm. not an action mm-hmm. thing, now you're in complete control of everything in your physical experience.
So then within resolving that relationship, I'm in my right, and I realize the language is faulty, but I am in my right to choose to move away from that which does not please me when I'm offered words that don't please me, or that don't resonate with me in an emotional way that soothes me.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
We would never say to anyone that you should stand in a place of any kind of discomfort or abuse and use that as your in other words, you've just said to us that you always go to the bushes and check out to see if there's a monster, and this is the same sort of thing, isn't it? Where
I don't do that anymore as such, and yes, you are absolutely right. I see that.
Here's what we would like to summarize what you just asked about in this powerful way. When you are living something that is clearly something that you don't want, and it's showing you that you don't want it in many, many ways, and you say, all right, I think I will remove myself from this. And so you do. Almost in every case, even though you feel relief from the immediacy of it, you have not vibrationally changed at all.
Right.
And so the same sort of experience with different places and different faces begins to amass around you, because law of attraction just keeps matching you up with it. So when you take the action to give yourself that space where you feel more relief, then it is very important to do the vibrational work.
Yes, indeed.
When we come together next, we'll talk about ways of closing this vibrational gap, because it's an interesting thing. We've been watching Esther. She made a little computer program for herself where a situation would occur which would give her clear awareness that something that she did not want was afoot, was in the process of becoming. And in the midst of that, clarity of what she would prefer would show itself to her. But sometimes she would be invested here because this was more vivid and more real and more present, and therefore more active in her vibration. So now the desire is like a torturing sort of thing. And it almost feels like I can't win because I don't want this and I can't get this. Right. And now I'm mad that I even want that because I can't get to it. And that's where so many people stand relative to so many different subjects. So now the work is to find a way of closing that gap. And so Esther would sit and write with that intention only, to just find some word, find something that she could type into her computer program that would begin to close that gap. And what she discovered every time she sat to do it was that long before she resolved this issue, another sub-issue would show itself, and another sub-issue, and another sub-issue, and another sub-issue. So she would sit to close one gap on one thing and turn up 20 or 30 different little pieces of it that she found that she would have to resolve before this one would resolve itself.
So choose a clean onion rather than peeling one.
That sort of thing. That sort of thing. So when we come back together next, we will talk about some of that. And if you are willing and you want to bring some of the things that you're wanting to close the gap on, we can show you how to close the gap. And you know, closing the gap, gap is starting to sound normal now. Closing the gap will be beneficial on so many different fronts, because a little bit of effort in closing the gap nets enormous results in terms of manifestation.
Yes.
Good time for a long segment of refreshment. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely.